Welcome to yet another edition of the SABC News COVID-19 Global Wrap, where myself, Babalole Phaka, and my colleague Busisiwe Khatebe bring you highlights of stories which dominated news headlines with regards to the coronavirus pandemic. In global stats, the world currently sits at over 9.7 million confirmed cases, with over 5.2 million recoveries and over 490,000 deaths. South Africa currently has over 118,000 cases, with over 59,000 recoveries and over 2,200 deaths.
In South Africa, in his special supplementary budget to counter the effects of COVID-19, Finance Minister Tito Mboweni said tax revenue shortfall for the current financial year is projected at 300 billion rand and drastic action is needed to contain ballooning debt and narrow the budget deficit.
As a consequence, gross tax revenue for 2020-21 fiscal year is revised down from 1.43 trillion rand to 1.12 trillion rand. That means that we are expecting to miss our tax target for the year by some 300 billion rand.
Workers at Lancet Laboratories have accused the company of violating COVID-19 protocols. One of the workers spoke to SABC News.
Day in and out, I'm working with COVID samples. The company says if I suspect I have corona, then I must get tested, but I must pay for the test myself. This is really unfair, because we are also under a lot of stress and depression, because we are vulnerable and we don't know where to run.
South Africa started COVID-19 vaccine trials in Johannesburg with 8 participants on Wednesday. 2,000 participants between the ages of 18 and 65 will be enrolled.
So for all of these participants, the 2,000, they will be randomly allocated to one of two groups. Half of them will receive the vaccine, the other half will receive what we call a placebo. We don't know which group they've been assigned to. The participants don't know which group they've been assigned to. It's only the pharmacist and the person that's administering the vaccine that will know. So what we then do beyond that is we then follow up these participants. Every 2 weeks, we would basically give them a call to find out if they got any signs or symptoms suggestive of COVID-19. If they do, then we will ask them to come back and we will take a swab to test whether it is from the virus or not. In between that 2-week period, if they at any stage they develop any sort of symptoms, it's exactly the same procedure. We ask them to come to our clinic to be investigated.
Now to the rest of Africa. The continent has now recorded over 350,000 confirmed COVID-19 cases with over 168,000 recoveries and over 9,100 deaths. Still on the COVID-19 vaccine, African Union Chairperson Cyril Ramaphosa says the successful development of a safe vaccine for Africans requires greater collaboration from member states. He made the remarks during the Africa Centers for Disease Control virtual conference on vaccine development and access.
As African leaders, we need to join our efforts and negotiate with global donors to raise funds. But we also need to do it ourselves. And we need to mobilize resources in each of our countries and within the continent to secure supply of the vaccine upfront. We need to start to plan now and to improve the infrastructure in each of our countries to prepare for the rollout of the vaccine.
Senegalese President Macky Sall is quarantining for 2 weeks after coming into contact with someone who has since tested positive for the COVID-19, state television reported on Thursday. The measure is precautionary as his initial COVID-19 test came back negative. And lastly, the World Bank says Nigeria's COVID-19 outbreak may push 5 million people into poverty as it triggers the worst recession in the African powerhouse since the 1980s. The twin shock of the pandemic and a global oil price crash has pummeled Nigeria, which has Africa's largest economy, mainly because it is the continent's top crude producer.
And in international news, with the world's highest infections, the United States of America currently sits at over 2.5 million confirmed cases, with over 1 million recoveries and over 120,000 deaths. The COVID-19 outbreak skyrocketed in populous states, including Florida and Texas, with California recording 7,000 new infections on Tuesday. With record high hospitalizations recorded over the past week, the Texas Children's Hospital has now started to admit adult patients suffering from COVID-19. In the country with the world's second worst outbreak, Brazil's President Jair Bolsonaro was ordered by a judge to wear a mask in public or face hefty fines after having made numerous public appearances without one. And as the pandemic continues to grip Latin America, the region has now surpassed the 100,000 death mark. In Asia, health officials in China's capital Beijing reassured residents that all foods from the sprawling Xingfadi market are safe to consume. This after the market was cited as a cause of the virus outbreak which emerged in the city earlier this month and saw the return of strict lockdown measures and mass testing. And in Europe, after 3 months of closure, Paris's most famous landmark, the Eiffel Tower, reopened on Thursday under strict hygiene and safety controls. However, with elevators still off limits, visitors faced a long climb up the 674 steps to catch its remarkable views. The top section of the tower remains closed, and the management team hopes it will be fully operational by the summer.
For the latest updates on the coronavirus, visit sabcnews.com.